This I knew. For weeks my heart had been racing after I woke up. I had been experiencing this same sickening dream for the last several weeks. With every passing night, it grew slightly sharper. I was surrounded with a kind of brilliance and had power that beyond my comprehension within it. However, today's incident was different. It was a dream come true, or in other words, I felt an electrical current passing through me, taking the shape of my dream adventure. I am about to share with you all whether I possessed great powers or not. My name is Alex Martin. They wanted to know my full name, and I replied by stating, "My full name is Alex Martin. My 20th birthday was like any other day. I woke up in the morning, only to get dragged into this all. I was on my gap year after high school, so I was confused about what I want to be when I grow up. The goals I had were rather vague and could be summarized by the following. I wanted to play video games and not take responsibilities. That morning, I had energy, mental sharpness. That is, for a moment, it was as if a fog had been removed from my mind. I attributed it to the hangover that came with last night's celebration and proceed towards the kitchen. There was nothing else, save the quiet in the house immediately after my mother had gone to work. One day, a cup, which I used at the upper shelf, flew into my palm when I felt to take it. In wonder, with my fast-beating heart, I threw it down. Was that something that I conjured up in my mind? I attempted the task again closer, paying attention and putting on a spoon. The one that left me in a state of awe was the OTC, and finally ending on my hands. I spent the next few hours playing with little items, moving them with my mind. At this point, I could hardly believe what was happening. If only I could move objects with my mind, like a certain teenage mutant. Or was it all just a symptom of schizophrenia? My thoughts were rather chaotic because I was desperately trying to understand what was happening. The next day, as well as the days preceding it, I tried to practice as much as possible in my room, as I did not want anyone to see that I learned the tricks. I realized that moving also meant that I was able to produce bursts of energy other than the items. I gained better sensitiveness and realized how to control my power. It was quite thrilling and at the same time somewhat scary. Clearly, for me, this meant that I had no real reason to disagree, to attempt to alter or steer the conversation in ways that would be personally beneficial or forward specific personal agendas. Did I any kind of weirdo? I embarked on my research in order to get answers, in that I was certain there were some out there. I have come across people who can do incredible things, and about myths and tales. One day I came across a mention of an old book that can be found in a reduced complex in a deserted convent nearby our community. Ubiquitous rumor said it contains knowledge on how to employ such powers. Although it appeared to be a little unrealistic, it was intriguing to desire to look into it. The mysterious place, which looks like a monastery overgrown with ivy, was situated outside the town's territory. They were something that hardly anyone remembered, something from an entirely different age. I remember actually feeling the stench of decay and dirt as I entered the building. I strolled around and around the deserted corridors, the noise I made fearful, and after searchings for hours I found a small hidden door. In the center of the clear area, there was an antique, very ostentatious book with many symbols, which was opened. The pages seemed to glow a little when I opened it, and threw a gorgeous, soft luminescence over the area. Although the language of the text is quite old, the more I devoted my time to it, the nearer I felt that those words were said to me, rather than merely written. That is the summary of the novel that depicted the life of a family of people who were chosen to maintain the balance of the world since they had remarkable abilities. These abilities were not superimposed. They were, in fact, planned out. What is more, I realized that I was one of those, a lucky few, a guardian. and also for me to be able to fully realize my skills, the book provided training exercises. In the following several months, I dedicated myself to become an expert of my field. Many hours of training were used to develop my skills, and even firstly, I tried to go beyond myself. I knew how to use energy fields and develop senses to the optimal level, as well as to heal minor injuries. Every day, I became a better person, and no longer a girl who was afraid of the dark. I became a confident person day by day. But I realized at the same time that having special abilities means that I have a responsibility. I was performing my routine early one evening in a rural area of the bush when I met a stranger. A man suddenly emerges, which is not different from any other man, wearing all black clothing. He was able to introduce himself as another guardian in the form of Marcus. The fellow named Marcus chimed in and said that it was my turn to go inside, and then proceeded to state that he had been watching me in terms of my growth. Then other guardians were met after getting to a secret shelter where the first one led me. All individuals possess certain skills at a certain level, and he or she can always narrate a story on how he or she acquired his or her talent. Thus, through the instituted training and learning processes, we underwent the transformation and becoming of a cohesive community. Our common goal was to protect the world from those who tried to restore the balance disturbed by someone. When I became engrossed with the world, I started to encounter enemies referred to as the shadows. These people also had powers, but their intentions were evil, primarily aiming at benefiting themselves at the expense of others. Thus, in order to maintain peace and order in the universe, the Guardians have been more or less in a constant war with the shadows. I knew that to have fundamental adversaries of science, I shall challenge these opponents as my final battle. The shadows decided to attack the following night, a town that was not too far from their location. The Guardians were put through their training and their brotherhood forged to the final challenge. I fought dauntlessly with other Guardians, as I have been one of them for quite some time now. It was effective to stop the shadows from fulfilling their plans, and also people's lives were saved due to my skills of control and sharpness. That satisfaction came over me, as I am in the midst of rubble once the war was over. I was no longer the same ordinary young man that I used to be before all these events unfolded. By admitting my fate that I cannot change in any way, I had actually discovered what I was capable of doing. Despite the realizing that my journey was long from over, I felt ready to face whatever was ahead with my new family beside me. Very soon, more and more people got to know of my story, and of how, even with such a condition, unique abilities could be found, and everyone should embrace what they were created to do. So, I came to symbolize hope and positive thinking as a testimony that all of us have what it takes to succeed once it is unlocked. Thus, the Guardians remained not only the embodiment of the victory, but also the monument to all those people who chose to fight against the threats of the planet.